Welcome, welcome to another Mind, Body, Spirit panel. We have three amazing guests coming back to us. Each of them is a veteran in their own right. This is a fantastic crew to even interact with angels perhaps later, but to talk about mankind, the inner journey, and the outer journey for humanity itself. I'll do very brief intros. We'll let them work in maybe 5 to 10 minutes in their backgrounds a little bit more. We have Dr. Jude Currivan, cosmologist. We've got, if it's theater, very different types of theater, labyrinth sensory work. Uh, we've got Iwan Brioc over in Wales, and Jude's in the UK as well. Um, we have Ian Matthews in South Korea. If it's, and now I'm not going to get this exactly right, even though he and I have taped a bunch of times. I've been under the weather for 3 days, so I'm just trying to keep it together. We have Ian Matthews in South Korea, and it's if it's wellness, if it's digital, if it's Zen, that's him. But he's also got a neuro angle to it. So welcome to you all. Let's get started on the panel. How's everybody doing?
Hi, thanks, Michael. Good to be with you again, and with Wayne and with Ian.
Well,
Yeah.
let's do this. Let's go for the trillion-dollar question first. What is going on with mankind right now? You could like the Yankees for your whole life, but now you hate the Yankees and you're a Mets fan or Dodgers. Everything seems to be flipping upside down, and wait a week and it could change again. I'm just using a Major League Baseball metaphor. The whole world has flipped upside down. There's a lot more control going on, censorship, this, that. Is it a last gasp by the groups out there that believe power, control, money is important? What's happening here, Jude? What do you see with mankind?
I love that we're starting with a really trivial question, Michael, that we can probably hang out for 10 minutes discussing. Um, I do see a lot. I see the both and of all that you're saying. Certainly, there's some significant breakdowns or on the cusp of breakdowns. Certainly, there is that last gasp holding on to what has been, but really cannot sustain, in my view. And also, we don't see so much of it in the media because the media is still working on the mainstream proposition that if it bleeds, it leads. But nonetheless, there is amazing things happening. And much of my work is supporting and nurturing and facilitating that potential for transformation rather than paying a lot of attention to what is literally falling apart. I'm not denying it in any way. I think it's actually happening. Um, and I think in many ways it's tragic, but I also feel that it's almost a mirror back to us as who we are collectively as a species. And so when I see the green, the green shoots, as it were, the imaginal cells of the potential, I see wonderful things, extraordinary, creative, inspirational, empowering things happening, and people finding each other to link up and lift up together. And I also see the sort of the breakdown of the caterpillar, which is a precursor in a way. I've never, both as a cosmologist and an evolutionary biologist, I've never seen a metamorphosis where the old doesn't break down to enable the new to break through. And I feel that's the sort of, and there's no guarantees, is what I'd also suggest at the moment. It's down to us. It's literally our choice, personally and collectively, is what do we choose? Are there enough of us that choose the potential for transformation change, or do we sink into apathy, despair, cynicism, dystopia, whatever it may be? And that's my choice is to leap into love rather than fall into fear, to actually choose to live my life in service to the potential of what we can be and healing of our relationship with all our relations.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Jude. And Iwan, what's your reply?
I could just listen to Jude all day. Do I have to say anything? Yeah, I think there's definitely a last gasp going on here of capitalism. The feeling I have at the moment is like we're a fish in a barrel and the water's being extracted, and there's less and less space, and that extraction, is going to like 12 people in the world, 12 billionaires that own more than half the population of the world. Um, so there's that aspect. There's another aspect which is AI kind of replacing what we think we are. as thinking beings, and doing it much better than us, which again is like a mirror reflecting back, saying, well, is this all we are, or are we something else? Is consciousness just cognition and processing, or is there something deeper that we need to preserve or realize? And then we have this other thing coming in, which is what's real. With last time we met, Michael, you'd mentioned this. It's very big in America, this Disclosure Day, and it's hasn't gone away. And the fake news has been with us for a long time. So I think there's this huge sense of uncertainty that Jude mentioned, and the stress response to uncertainty is to narrow your vision. And my work, I feel, is to help people to identify that is happening, but that's not who we are. There's an awareness of it, and to sit in that awareness, and I think that connects with probably where Ian is at as well, and it's just being able to connect with that awareness that all of this, and I learned something really interesting the other day, which is the meaning of the word illusion. It comes from the Latin for at play, that this is an illusion, and we are at play in this illusion, and bring that lightness to it.
Very nice. Ian, tough acts to follow, but I know you can.
That was so beautiful. I know we all wish that, and it's difficult to say it without sounding as if we're at a different level to everyone else, which of course we're not. And I just wish everyone could hear this. And I know it's not going to happen anytime soon, everyone, but we and people like us, because there's many, and thanks to people like you, Michael, allowing us to even discuss this, and hopefully it resonates, and we know it ripples out. Jude knows that more than anybody. This is rippling out right now. I'm very close to what Iwan was saying. We have to start from where we are, and with the people we all work with and we communicate with and we present to and everything else, I'm sure we're noticing it. Probably because we've been there. We've been on the other side. That's typically how we got into our work, where we kind of got engulfed or overwhelmed by the game. And we got lost in it, consumed by it. And it probably took something maybe quite disturbing or traumatic to finally wake us up. I don't know. Sometimes that's the usual way that people are becoming more conscious. Not always. And then suddenly you start looking as if you're starting again. You don't know anything. It's like, oh my God. And you're asking these questions like, who am I? What am I doing here and stuff? But the trouble is, even when I'm working with people to help them to, let's just call it a reset, literally just do a reset to try and glimpse the present moment again, to come back to life, back to reality. And that isn't anything grandiose. It's just this moment sitting on this chair. Can we, make sure people can at least do that? Luckily, we have people like Jude and Iwan and yourself, Michael, that can then take them on incredible healing journeys, talking in articulate ways that I can't. I tried, and I'd like to keep it short. Luckily, I have Scottish blood, and my Scottish uncles always told me to, if you've got nothing to say, don't say it. So I try to teach by direct experience of just, can we give people a glimpse of coming back to the present moment? And that's where I just get the feeling that many people aren't even anywhere near that possibility, let alone working things out, and dealing with what's going on, which is massive. Although wonderful to be reminded that there's a massive number of people that are doing what we're doing as well, and they're reframing it, right? And they're learning, the mirror that you said, Iwan, as well. That consciousness is clearly coming in as well. I don't know, humanity, have they always had this? It's not just now, is it? Stress hasn't just been around now and everything. And they had burnout in the Middle Ages and all this, and way back further than that, and they started dealing with it. So is this constant tension release just a symptom of how energy works? Are we meant to be tense inside our bodies? And then using consciousness, we recognize that and we can release it. And that helps us to feel alive. So just a glimpse of the present moment for me is where I'm starting. And I'm doing it with myself most of the day as well, reminding myself. And one way I'm doing that to try and close this, and thank you for, allowing me to mention it. Am I available? I keep saying that to myself now. Am I available? Because if I'm not, I'm being distracted by something, aren't I? Typically the gadgets, typically, the environment and people around us who maladaptive stress response, Iwan, millions about this too. And because of that, you're future thinking all the time, or you're shaming about the past. And so you're never in this moment. And when we mention things like presence, people have difficulties talking about that. They have difficulties with words like awareness and awakeness. So one thing I'm trying at the moment is this: am I available? Am I available for this person? Am I available to listen when Jude was speaking, when Iwan, and when you were speaking, Michael? I'm really bringing it back to that these days.
And as I always like to say, if too tense, grab a friend, go camping. Okay, I've got a couple quotes from Mother Teresa, some while she was alive, some from the other side. Beautiful, loving, unconditional love figure. She said, compassion is like a deep breath for many, meaning I think that's the closest a lot of people are going to get to it on any given day. They're so busy. Another one she said is, compassion is not dependent on any one person's happiness. And finally, laughter is love. Beautiful, beautiful quote. That might have been when she was alive. Jude, what's your reaction to those quotes?
First of all, I rather than just respond to the quotes, I'd just like to respond to something that Ian and Iwan said, actually. And then I think because that feeds into the understanding of the quotes. And Ian, you said something about, perhaps humanity's always had this push-pull, the tension, the ease, whatever. I think there's a difference now. It's almost as though I'm sort of seeing it as though we've come on a very long journey as what it means to be human to this point. And yes, we've had challenges, we've had ease, we've had the whole gamut of experience, but we've never had that on a collective global scale as a species until now. So whatever was happening with the Black Death in Europe was not happening in America, North or South America, or China or Australia or wherever. It seems that all of those experiences of stress and strain, but also wonderful joy, play, all of it, we've all experienced at different times in different places. And that to some degree that's happening still, but it seems to me that we've come to this point, which is almost like either the death throes or a birthing canal, where we literally are all in this together. And instead of we're in a chronic stressful situation now. We're in a dis-ease of the illusion of separation now. And yet we're potentially waking up from that to remember who we really are. And so in that sense, I think the whole of humanity is facing this. And it doesn't matter whether you're Elon Musk or you're, someone living in the slums of Mumbai. We're all facing this. How we respond, how we deal with it, how, if we can sort of, pull up the moat or whatever, we're all facing this. And as collective psyche, it seems that that's where we're at now. So the question for me is, do we wake up and to remember who we are, that we're unique and yet inseparable? And does that awakening bring to us that place of empathy, that place of compassion? And that's the quotes that Michael so beautifully shared with us from Mother Teresa. Because if we can't feel, if we're so caught in the illusion of separation that we lose our capacity for empathy, then for me, we lose a very big part of what it means to be human. And if we can remember our empathy, we can remember compassion. I don't mean here, I mean here. I mean a lived expression of what that means to be human, as Mother Teresa did, and invites us to do. That, I think, for me, is far more important than becoming more cognitively effective. I'd rather be more heartfully effective in the world. I'd rather have my compassion. Einstein talked about the circle of compassion and expanding the circle of compassion. That, for me, is what conscious evolution is fundamentally about. Not just knowing more stuff or cognitively increasing, although that's part of it. I think it's far more as literally breaking our hearts open to and with each other, and not just humans, but our entire planetary home and all Mother Gaia's children. And that's what I feel Mother Teresa is inviting us to do, Michael.
And Iwan, you've lucked out. You're receiving 2 angel photos. You can use one, you can use both. Get something either private and just say got it, or get something for us all from them jointly. There's Charlotte, Archangel Michael, actual photos from maybe 14 years ago. People, if they're shy, you can just put your hand out and treat it like a fireplace. You'll feel a little warmth. Try too hard, sparkle on your toes. Iwan, what are you getting for us all from these 2? And then it'll be something you can talk about if you're game, but you're theater, so you're used to getting ambushed on stage.
I feel from the Charlotte, I feel clarity. There's that color.
And keep going with that. Go ahead and get something that you can talk about. She'll cough the lines out from behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's like a prompt.
And just say, got it when you got it. I'll pull it away. We'll get you wound up and...
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think I was on my podcast recently. I had Vishrant, who's a teacher from Australia. And one of the points that was really interesting talking with him, and it relates to what Ian was saying about how we've gone through some kind of breakdown to be drawn to this, what we do. He talked about Satori, which are these glimpses, of our true nature, and he received them when he was quite young, and so did I. And where we met, I think, was that feeling of having a sense of the scale of who we really are, and trying to fit into this itty bitty little body and this experience, and the suffering of that. And I come back to this illusion, of separation. It's very difficult to come back into that, as you are almost inevitably drawn in this world of egos and in relationships. When you've glimpsed the vast cosmic reality, but it can be tragic, but it can also be hilarious, really funny. And I think that's where she says, is it laughter is love? I think that kind of laughter, I absolutely adore that. And I would like to develop some kind of non-duality course, which is constructed like a comedy show, like a sitcom, which coils you up into this ego and then releases it into this. Yeah, but it's all a play. It's just a play. And what's interesting from a Zen perspective, I'm assuming, it's when you realize this play that you are not responsible, that you have the ability to be available and to be able to respond. Because that stress of being responsible for everything kind of falls away. And this relates, I think, to what we've been talking about in terms of, is this what this situation, is it something new, brand new, or has it always been in some level? I think this is an end game, isn't it? Which ironically calls us to be able to relax and enjoy the play, so that we can be available for the transformation.
Ian, you did not get off the hook. I've got two quotes for you, complete diametrically opposite. Winnie the Pooh, and then Siddha Katrappa from probably 1,000+ years ago. Winnie the Pooh is Piglet asks Winnie the Pooh, "How do you spell love?" Winnie the Pooh says, "You don't spell it, you feel it." And then this next one I've had since 1992. I did not have a diary back then, but I did have a notebook. And I wrote this down and was perplexed what non-duality could possibly mean for about 16 years, till an Acura dealership with Thich Nhat Hanh's Little Pieces Every Step book in my hand, I came to the only non-sentence in the book. Blah, 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 non-duality, period. Not to, period. And I was like, I waited 16 years to find out not to is what non-duality means. Meanwhile, here's that quote, and then we'll like to launch you into whatever comes to light here. Whatever the yogin sees is his instruction and realization that all he sees is unborn. That is the most excellent guru. Innocence is the way to realize non-duality, for here the effects of virtue and vice are one. Siddha Katrappa.
It doesn't matter if it's Piglet or the guru, isn't it? It's just wonderful wisdom that keeps on coming to us from the ages because people have been there before us. And at what point does it collectively stick? Cycling back to what you're saying, Jude, maybe it's through collective trauma that it's going to stick. And then we start using that wisdom that they told us about, from so long ago, thousands and thousands of years ago. And the tools that they use, let me call them that just for now, because it's much more complex and clever than just saying it's just a bunch of tools to shake us out of it, to shake us out of our mass hypnosis, which is not our fault. It's not anybody's fault, I don't think, anymore, because it's just been handed down, and we know how the human organism just loves to copy. If it sees a group of people doing a pattern, it'll do it whether you realize or not, isn't it? So we've copied it all, haven't we? All of us, consciously, some of us, unconsciously, most of us. And we're in this dire situation where we cannot see reality for what it is. But perhaps it's going to be the quotes that will allow us, when we're sitting in circles, just to pass that around. And with compassion, coming from the heart, totally agree, Jude. It's got to be from the heart. And Iwan, I love the laughter. That's essential. I like occasionally dropping back into Eckhart Tolle's stuff, and where he suddenly spontaneously he says something dreadful but bursts out laughing because of this, the ridiculousness of this condition that we're in, isn't it? It's so ridiculous that we're in it for so-called intelligent species. And I would say, love. Big John Lennon fan, of course. Love is the answer, but unfortunately, love gets hijacked, doesn't it? And I try and look at love, and I've looked into the, etymology of it and all that, and it's the love of life, I think, is what they really mean, the love of being alive, the love of aliveness. But we've romanticized it. And so again, people get confused with that when we're asking people, that love is the answer. They'll fall into that romantic trap, and it's not going to get them anywhere. And we've all done a lot of work, haven't we? What am I? I'm 62, and I think I'm only just kind of gripping it or understanding it now. The words such as, all the knowing is inside us, all the knowing being is inside us. It's already there. We've just got to get ourselves out of the way. But, you wrestle with that, don't you? Because it's so against what we've been taught and conditioned. What does that mean, though? It's feeling again, I think. I think feeling has got a big part to play to help us, at least on the first stage. And looking at this from a mindfulness side, I connect mindfulness with vagal activation, because I found that it just gave people a chance. Because trying to teach mindfulness these days to people who need assistance, it's like trying to meditate in a burning house. It's impossible now, because it really is. They're just so overwhelmed. We're all still overwhelmed. So what I found was that when I linked and started body first with attentional work, and breath work, of course, is always the place to start, and then gave a little bit of an instruction, very simple instruction, about what was going on in terms of your nervous system. You're shifting out of sympathetic arousal, with just a long exhale, and there's a pendulum effect that you are producing within yourself just by breathing out for an exhale. And try that now and let me know how it feels. And suddenly people, even on screens like this, don't have to be face to face or in person. We're really experiencing something, the direct experience of being here now, just with a little bit more information involved. And the reason why I say that is because I spent thousands and thousands of hours watching the YouTubes back in the day of Thich Nhat Hanh, and he was saying, just breathe in through your nose and out of your nose. But there was no other explanation. And even the Sadhgurus will tell you to do this, that, and the other. And there's no internal explanation of what's going on. What I found is by going back to feeling, people getting the tangible feeling that something has shifted. That's what I mean. And they literally, you've got powerful executives that suddenly go, and you've just done an exhale, or they have done the exhale. Sorry, it's them doing the work, not me. And they've been open to it. So they're I bow down to the fact they want to listen to me in the first place. And then they get, for the first time in such a long time, that break in between thought, isn't it? That's what's really happening. The break in between thoughts, so they return to the reality that we are, that stillness that we are. You don't have to then go into any much more depth than that, because they felt it. And so that's sitting around a circle, having compassion, being vulnerable, trying out an exercise, whether they've tried it or not. So practicing, and I love that. That's why I'm saying this, linking to what you said, Iwan, which is, let's do some stuff and let's add a bit of fun as well. So we've actually got to take action, haven't we? We've got to do something about this too. And you mentioned, Jude, we can't just cognize everything and know everything. We've actually got to practice our way back to reality with simple circles, and opening up and things like that is extremely powerful.
And Ian, you just earned a quick 30 seconds or less with Thich Nhat Hanh. What is he saying to you right now for all of us, if you don't mind listening on behalf of humanity? And get a hug if you wish to hear music from a temple or incense from a Vietnamese temple, smell it in the air. Even get an embrace. And of course, screensavers, modern technology, yay. And what are you hearing for all of us?
He's asking us to stop running, even when we're sitting down or when we're in our bedroom to try and find a way, again, and it's not us to blame, to stop running.
Jude, I have two photos for you. You can ignore them. You can use them. Four archangels plus a guardian angel, but her name's Min with a serious background. These guys are all cosmic. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. Catch something privately, catch something for public consumption. But if you could, let it catapult you into a new direction. I'll add the word dimensionality. We're moving away from thinking concrete blocks, linear structure, and the rest, and breaking open into something broader. And what would you like to share? And then what would you like to share? And just say got it when you got it.
I got it. They're saying, and I speak with them every morning, but they're saying in this moment, remember, you have far more help than you ever thought you had. And I sometimes wonder when we have this conversation, I know that's not for us, but I think going back to what Ian, you were saying, is so many people are stressed, and because of the illusion of separation, there's a loneliness there as well. And there's a difficulty, and I think this is also perhaps more difficult in men than it is with women, an ease in reaching out to ask for help. And talking of multidimensionality, in my experience, the help's always available to us. But what I was given as a very young child is please ask for it. Just ask for it. It'll be there. We're always here. We're always here to help. We're always here to support. But we can't do that. It's almost like the old, what is it in Star Trek about non-intervention?
Prime directive.
Prime directive, non-intervention, unless asked. So I think that prime directive is a multidimensional prime directive, actually. And when we do ask for help, it comes, always, in my experience.
Interesting. And what's funny is that Star Trek, in a way, the crew of the Enterprise was really the angels. And then the planet, the inhabitants, was really us. If you think of the animated version of Star Trek,
Yeah.
it had a lot more detail. Even though the 1963-64 series was incredible. But what I'll try to point to is the bridge of the Enterprise for the animated series had a Kaitian, we could argue a modern day Lyran, on the as part of the crew, as well as a really skinny guy with 3 arms, 3 legs. I don't know what alien species he was, but the point of this is there are different times where I feel like there was a chance humanity could maybe open up more, walk a smoother path. That was maybe perhaps one of them, or maybe all along we've been getting prepped for this moment. Who knows? That, Iwan, is what's coming to you. Are we ready? Does it really matter what we think? Because this isn't about thinking. It's about less thinking to something else. Perhaps more awareness, more love. Let's have you wax on that one.
Are we going into alien and interdimensional territory? I mean, as I'm a total novice in this, but I had a memory arise recently of seeing a Tic Tac UFO over Cardiff as an 8-year-old, and my neighbor across the fence saw it as well. It's a cigar-shaped silver, and it just hovered there for a while and then just disappeared. And I only remembered because this word Tic Tac is coming back now with these disclosures. Oh, that was an UFO or a UAP or whatever. And I think a lot of us probably have those memories that we've discounted. I have no idea what these experiences are. There's a Jungian perception, isn't there? That they're just kind of like echoes of our experience in the womb. But I'm open to suggestion as to what this is, and I'm fascinated by this interdimensional aspect there. Yeah, it's
Well, you've walked into it now because I've asked about 40 guests in the last, I'm going to say 6 months. I've given them three scenarios and asked each guest to kind of weave it together, including one of the guests. One of the examples came from her newsletter, Cynthia Sue Larson, who's fantastic, very cosmically oriented. She always says, how good can it get? If you ever need to get back to your heart, get back to grounding with Mother Earth, how good can it get? What a great phrase. Okay, so for Ian in South Korea, here are the three examples. There's Elizabeth April on Instagram, a remote viewer, channeler, but she shared publicly an experience with her child who's like under 6 years old, who can count to 10. There's another adult in the room. She puts one marble into the hand. The child says one. The second marble with the other adult watching, two marbles, two. Third marble goes in, three. Fourth marble, four. Fifth marble goes in, child says four, and I believe opens the hand, and there are four marbles. Whoopsie. So it's a little bit like Matrix with the glitch. The cat goes by twice. Okay, second example is Celestine Prophecy, the movie. We just had Barnett Bain on, who wasn't the top director for that movie. He did What Dreams May Come. He did Eckhart Tolle's Milton's Secret, the school bullying film with Donald Sutherland and Mia Kirshner. And he really teaches creativity and is also very cosmically connected. But in Celestine Prophecy, there's a moment where Edward James Olmos, if anybody remembers the original Miami Vice police chief, they're in the jungles of Latin America being chased by troops. And these soldiers are looking for a small group of people. They raise their vibe. They go invisible. We're not going to point out that one of them has a little fear and wavers, and then they get caught later. But they raise their vibe, and at least initially, the soldiers walk right by. They go interdimensional, if you wish. The Star Trek tubes. They just whoop, but then they get caught. So there's the second one. The third example is Cynthia Sue Larson's newsletter. A couple is at home and they are practitioners. If she's breathwork, they're breathwork practitioners. He cuts his hand or something. Paramedics arrive, they stabilize him, get him to the ER. They know this ER is busy 24/7. Every stall is filled, period. But they have really smooth everything. Paramedics are great. It's pleasant. They're there at the ER for 4 hours, don't see anybody. Every stall is empty. The two nurses are acting like it's packed. They get in, they get out. Smoothest trip ever. But it was packed, but they didn't see anybody. Now, all three of these point to something. Ian, what is it that they're pointing to? How would you like to answer? Jude, you're up next. You're going to get a lot of time to prep. And Iwan, you're last on this. We're circling around. Ian, what is this whole thing of dimensionality? Is it where you put your focus is where you put your focus? How you spend your energy is how you spend it. Is there more to life than meets the eye? How would you like to tackle these?
Much more than meets the eye, because the eye is a very primitive viewfinder of all the frequencies out there. Of course, we see just a tiny bit of that. And being ex-Royal Signals in the British Army, foreman of signals, I always try and use the analogy of tuning a military combat radio. By tuning the radio, the LC circuit, inductor capacitor, just shunts a bit of noise out of the way, so the signal starts booming through again because you've matched the radio to the antenna. So you get the clear signal that was originally there before the noise interrupted, if you like. And I think that's a great analogy. I try and use it anyway. It works for me, of course, because I'm an engineer, but it seems to resonate with other people, this tuning thing, where I'm saying, there's so much out there for you. You're such an unlimited being. You've been conditioned so deeply to limit yourself with your thinking, primarily. Being told who you are, what to get upset by, all these things. Doesn't mean you get rid of those things, because you can have fun with those once you're able to step back from them too and play the game, because it's a great game too. It's, again, coming back to Iwan, it's a fantastic, colorful, beautiful game. But what if it's starting then to get mega noisy and crazy and you stop seeing things because, again, you get myopic? Well, you can just like I used to do on the radio, and then you've tuned in again. Your nervous system is the antenna. It literally is an antenna. It works but it's very intelligent compared to a military radio. And it's tuning your body to that antenna so that you become coherent within yourself, and you radiate clearer. The signal, sorry, it's already there. It's booming through you now because you've tuned yourself up. And you then become, through your brain and autonomic system, more receptive to what is out there. And it is multidimensional, multi-frequency. And you're going to pick up things that probably you don't even understand. It might be quite scary, or it might be cool because you're like, oh my God, I remember things. It could be as simple as suddenly I can remember things again, or you're dealing with stressful situations so much easier. You're so much more creative. That's multidimensional for me because it's always there, but it's been blocked because you're out of tune. Multi-dimensions, fascinating, or planes of consciousness, as Ram Dass would talk about. Fascinating. Can we see them? Not by looking, I think. Can we know them in terms of when we are able to sit in being and then allow them to re-emerge through us? Rupert Spira would say, yes, we can. That's the time when we're sitting, we've quieted ourselves down again, we've retuned the body with some simple breathing or muscle tense release, things like that. Here's the key. The organism knows what to do. It's just that all the rest of the stuff we've been laid on us, all the rest of the nonsense, doesn't allow it. It knows how to self-regulate, of course it does. But we're just not giving it a chance anymore. So that potential, I think, of multidimensional potential that we have and can experience in lots of ways that Jude will be able to say that I can't. Again, I'm starting to drown a little bit now. I think it must start with the education of building a better relationship and very, very straightforward, basic user guideline, how the mind works, how the body works, how the emotions work, and then use that and energy to then bring a sense of coherence on the spot in 60 seconds, and you're more likely to tune into the bigger picture, let's put it that way. I'm really struggling now. Please help, Jude.
Hey, Jude, I've got a couple quotes before you go.
Sorry.
It was just going to be one quote, but I'm going to do a few and just see if it perks up anything extra on top of what you had prepared. Gary Zukav, Seat of the Soul, said, "You change the way that you shape the light which is flowing through you by changing your consciousness." Einstein said, "We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if mankind is to survive." Buddha, in the sky, no distinction between East and West. Man makes distinction out of mind and then believes it to be true. And I'll leave it at that. What do you have for us?
Thank you. I don't think I prepared anything. I was so enraptured by what Ian was saying. I was just so interested in how he was describing it so beautifully. But maybe I can add a sort of, perhaps a little bit of context for this, because we're having a conversation about multidimensionality, which the prevailing scientific paradigm doesn't even recognize, wouldn't even recognize. We've inherited, as we know exactly, we've inherited a 19th century worldview, scientific worldview, of a materialistic and mechanistic universe of things and separation, where consciousness isn't even, it's pushed to the side, peripheralized. It somehow arises in humans after a long, almost accidental evolutionary arc of the universe. What we're finding out now is evidentially across all scales and of existence and across many, many different fields of research is turning that not just on its head, but inside out. And I can't remember when we last spoke, but I have a feeling it was before the Club of Rome invited me to write a discussion paper called The Unitive Science of a Living Universe, because what they recognize from their whole systems approach is that the whole systems approach, if it's still based on a materialistic, mechanistic worldview, isn't whole enough, and it has a hole in it. And so they came to ask me to write this paper as a discussion invitation to a worldview, a unitive worldview, where the entire universe meaningfully exists, purposely evolves, as a unitive entity where mind and consciousness aren't what we have, they're what we and the whole world are. And the appearance of our universe emerges from deeper levels of cosmic causation. In this scenario, and I show the evidence, and I think I might have mentioned before that in 2022, the Nobel Prize for Physics was given for such a unitive perspective for our entire universe. And the Nobel is only given for settled science. So this is not contentious anymore. And what this does is invites us into this remembering that we are microcosmic co-creators, co-weavers of a unitive, multidimensional universe where, as Ian and Iwan has spoken, our natural abilities are that we can, and I am clairvoyant, Ian, so I can see, but I'm also clairsentient and clairaudient. I'm not special. These are our natural attributes. Intuition can't even be explained by the old paradigm, but it's a natural superpower for us in this multidimensional unitive understanding of the world and our part in it. Because I think it was you, Ian, that said, we're like, I love the engineering. I love engineers, and I love tinkering with stuff. I usually bring it apart and can't get it back together again, but that's different. But this sense of we are transceivers, and we're innately conscious, microcosmic conscious transceivers of the universe's innate sentience. And so, when we tune to that, we're naturally able to perceive far beyond any limitations of space or indeed time, and multidimensionally. So you talked about coherence, and that tuning for me is an expression of coherence. And coherence is about cohering and cohering. That sense of presence, that sense of hearing and presence enables us to be able to turn out the distraction and the noise and really then tune into that signal. And on a very mundane level, but it's going back to what you were saying about the eyes as well. I don't know if you know the it's almost apocryphal, but it is a true experiment where students were shown a video of a basketball game. And in the video, part-time, there's a gorilla, or man in a gorilla suit. I don't think they got a gorilla. A man in a gorilla suit walks across the court, and a majority of students, when asked, did they see anything unusual, did not, because their eyes, brains were seeing patterns of expectation. And so when we talk about seeing is believing, again, if we turn that on its head to believing is seeing, if we're open to multidimensionality, if we're open to this realization that is both evidence-based but converging with universal and indigenous wisdom teachings and traditions, then, the adventure, the invitation, the adventure is extraordinary. And I also agree with what Iwan and Ian are both saying. I think it begins with as simple as it can be, but no simple, to be able to slow down, to breathe, to be present, and then be joyful. I did a panel yesterday too, and for Unity Earth as well, World Unity Week a while ago, dancing with the living universe. And I really wanted to emphasize that, that bodily dance, whether it's singing or it's dancing, whatever it is, but bodily and literally embodying, not just understanding, but experiencing, embodying this realization of who we really are.
I don't know if you could hear, since this is a game show, all the bells and whistles that just went off for the lightning round, and then we'll start to wrap it up. But we do have also thunder boomers here. We've got a huge thunderstorm. Luckily, we still have power. But speaking of music and performance and bringing in a new guest, selenite consciousness around the globe. If you want to put a hand out, feel what you can feel, don't judge. But this would be representative of all the selenite consciousness on the planet. We've also been doing this for about a year. So feel what you can feel. It might be a warmth tingle. You might just get it in the whole room. You might get flecks of light. You can hear a voice. It was a male voice last year. It's a female voice lately. Just get a little advice. If it's something you're going to be able to share later, fantastic. I see we all changed spots just because we did the hand thing. That'll go back to normal in a second. We just are shaking up the audience right now. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. What have you appreciated most? If you're shy, do the emoji stuff. You can hear sound bowl singing in the room physically around you. And I'll pull this down in just a second. Who felt something? Ian. Iwan, did you feel something?
I was just thinking about the film Disclosure Day and that thing that you hold on to when you become empathic.
I know they said that this is the from the movie, which I've not seen the movie, so I don't want to freak people out. Hopefully it was a good thing. But you both did. Did anybody get any words? Jude?
No, I didn't get the feeling though, Michael.
Okay, good. And then we're going to take another step. Remember the quote, you change the way that you see the light, which is flowing through you. I changed it instead of shape the light. You see the light which is flowing through you by changing your consciousness. Everyone's going to get a chance to see auras. I'll put up my fingers sort of like out of Celestine prophecy, but in India they do it this way. And as Sue Frederick, our guest from Arizona, pointed out, when she was doing healing back in the 1970s, this existed before the movie existed back then. Okay, you get a dad joke most importantly. Where in a hospital is the worst place to play hide and seek? Where? In the ICU.
Oh.
And I'll tell everybody how I got my dad jokes. It was back at medical school in Cape Town. I double majored in cloning and hide and seek. I never finished the program. I had to take a year off to find myself. Okay, everybody can see a little bit of color between my fingers. Just breathe, relax, be in your heart. You're already seeing it. It's like the basketball game. You can just see the gorilla in the room, no big deal. It'll be a little flow of light, some colors between my fingers. And Jude, what are you seeing for a little filament of light?
Yeah, I'm seeing a sort of like almost like a flame, slightly flickering flame. And I'm also seeing colors. I'm seeing a blue-green and slightly purple color.
Okay, Ian?
Yeah, it's very wavy, a very wavy, sort of morphing thing going on between your fingers.
And Iwan, no pressure, but are you seeing a little bit of light?
Yeah, there's like smoke.
Good.
Yeah.
And then you can get an object in there. We've had a hummingbird made out of blue light. We've had Merkabas. We've had all sorts of structures by now. Cardinals, flowers, you name it. Jude, what are you getting now?
Nothing specifically.
Okay. I'm going to sit down. Just that was a lot of energy for me. We're good. We took the step. And out of all that, we'll start to wrap it up, but we'll have a chance for each of you to talk twice. Talk to us about just being, love, letting up on the accelerator pedal of thinking just a little bit. Iwan, we're gonna start with you. How do we walk a smoother path?
The first practice in the Coming to Our Senses course is called dropping the balloon. So we don't start with the breath and the body, because it's like people need permission to stop, to give themselves permission to stop. And that is the beginning and the end of it, really. Because, we've these balloons which can represent thoughts or value systems or beliefs. Some of them are gilded or armor clad. They're such core beliefs, core thoughts. And just being able to lay them down is kind of a first step, I think. Because, and maybe I've talked about this before, and what brought it back is Ian talking about the radio. When neuroscientists started to study the brain, and there was this interference pattern that they had to tune out on the PET scanner or the whatever they were using, the electronic equipment. But then somebody noticed in the lab that this interference pattern was the same for everybody, and it became known as the default mode network. And then mindfulness became this idea of trying to switch out of default mode network into present moment awareness, which is the experiencing mode, as it's called. But we've talked about how we're obsessed with the past and the future, but I think there's another element. There's another guest in the room now, which isn't the past and the future. I kind of call it standby mode, but it's your phone. It's the distraction of the media. So default mode network, this mind wandering, this kind of is like, what if? So this is the thing. It's just a what if. What if this default mode network, this fuzziness that we have in the brain, is the background radiation of the cosmos if we're receivers? Just like when you have the old TVs, when they were not tuned, it was just that white noise, which is literally the echo of the Big Bang. What if what we're experiencing as agitation that we have to distract ourselves from, or we have to practice mindfulness to reduce, is actually the noise which requires attention to release the signal? Do you know what I'm getting at? So I'm very interested in reframing mindfulness as creating this capacity to be available to that noise, to turn it into a signal, not to make it into an enemy. Yeah, I don't know if that relates to what you were asking.
Ian, what do you have for us?
Yeah, it's that quieting to a point where you've come out of you've given yourself a pit stop in whatever you're doing, wherever you are. So now a bit of a Formula One analogy. When you're racing and there's your vision's getting clouded, they can quickly strip off, can't they? And they're still in the thick of it, right? And so that, for me, is the analogy is a 4-8 breath, because you've just got rid of some mud which is clouding your view, and that's the analogy of dropping, reducing some stress, or even breaking the pattern of the DMN, as you're saying there, Iwan, which is it's designed to think. The DMN is for thinking, and it's even for thinking when you're lying in bed. It's going to go, no, this is me, this is my time. Just when you kind of don't want that, the DMN is like, no, excuse me, permission to think. So the beingness for me is that incredible gift that we have that is very difficult to teach, but once you've experienced it, then there's no looking back, where you stepped back from the thinking. You're not trying to slow it down. You're not trying, you're just accepting thinking is part of you too. It's part of you. And as you just love, you keep on reminding us, Jude, we're not separate from anything. So we're not separate from the thoughts. That's and trying to stop thoughts is like trying to, Alan Watts' favorite one, iron a lake flat. The more you bother the thoughts, the more they're going to find fuel from that. So the beingness is stepping back from the thinking, and when we have that skill, when we have the capability to realize we have this special, incredible power called awareness or consciousness, or being, not talking about pure consciousness or anything like that, absolute reality. It's like here, and we have it. And because of that, we're not trying to not be human. And Jude, I love it. We want to be alive. Let's take the chance while we still have it, because it's not going to last for long. We want to be human. We want to be embodied. What can we do about that? We have awareness and mindfulness. Mindfulness to enable us to go, okay, when I've settled everything else down, when I've done a couple of exercises, and I love your starting exercise, Iwan. Permission first. That's genius. It's absolute genius. And then they'll do the exercise, and it could be anything from 1 minute to 3 minutes. My meditations are 3, 7, and 11 minutes these days, because people just cannot sit still for long enough to be doing a 45-minute John Kabat-Zinn one. It's just not going to happen. So start off with a 1 minute. Start off with a single breath, actually. Inhale, exhale, and then practice that, practice that, practice that. Watching the belly, the diaphragm rise and fall. Zen warriors did that for 3 months before they went on to anything else. Just watching the belly rise and fall, although there's a lot of depth involved in that as well. It's not just as simple as that, of course. What it's doing to the organism is incredible. Just simply paying attention to the diaphragm, to the belly, rising and falling. What it's doing to the autonomic nervous system is unbelievable. Pressing the vagal brake, dialing down the DMN. And the last thing I'd like to mention, because you brought up the DMN, Iwan, is I've been doing a fair bit of research into flow and flow states, so-called. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, his book on flow, I'm sure we're aware of that. I read his book a couple of times when I was going through my noisy, rebellious, and these days I prefer breathing to booze, thank goodness. But Scottish blood and everything else, I kicked the arse right out of it. And I was reading flow, and I was getting involved in mindfulness and all that. But you're reading it, but you're not really reading it, aren't you? And then when I became, more determined to sort myself out cleanly and coherently, and then now I'm teaching all that as well. So you've got to practice what you preach. I read the book again, and suddenly, talk about, again, multi-dimensions, because I tuned myself up and I cleaned myself up. A few years later, I just got the book out again. I'm like, holy crap. What he has is a 4-stage flow cycle. He kind of borrowed it from Herbert Benson, who was a Harvard professor, who borrowed it from somebody else in the 1920s. So again, nothing's that original, isn't it? We're not pretending. But a 4-stage flow cycle, which was struggle, release, flow, and recovery. And that mirrors how the autonomic nervous system gets out of trouble. And we could do that in a 1-minute exercise, or it could be a 90-minute Pomodoro type challenge to complete a task at work when you're under pressure, that type of thing. What it does, to get to the point, Iwan and Jude and Michael, is it quietens the DMN. And you have something called transient hypofrontality. It also shuts down the inner critic. And you go into flow if you're lucky, because you can't kind of go, come on, flow. You set the conditions, and if you're very lucky and you practice, flow will arise. And it's the flow that the tennis players suddenly, World Rugby Club, World Cup for England in rugby, Johnny Wilkinson said that he did the drop kick and he wasn't there. He'd gone into flow because he'd practiced that movement and that drop kick about 10,000 times. So by practicing conditioning yourself for flow, you're more likely to drop into it, and it dials down the DMN, and you reduce the inner critic, the ego, so you're more likely to get into what they call flow, but it's beingness. So we come back to your question, Michael. I hope I answered it. That is beingness, because you quietened the mind down, the thinking mind, and then the body will take over.
Ian, before we go to Jude to have us wrap up, just spell for us DMN so that somebody who wanted to look it up further could.
Default mode network, yeah. Default mode network, yeah. And obviously they can speak to Iwan about that as well. Look Iwan's work up as well. Okay. Your work, Iwan, just sounds unbelievable. It's such the right level of lightness about what you're doing. I just think it just sounds amazing.
Great. I'm happy to be able to share it. Blessed.
Jude, if you could wrap this up, there are universal loving beings here to help us all. You don't have to do much asking. There's no right or wrong way. You just have to kind of get out of your own way and talk to us more about if love's a constant, it's open your eyes to find love. Love is everywhere. And then only thinking something can get in the way. Go ahead and just close out this whole panel for us.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful to be with you all again. I just want to go back to what Iwan said about permission, because I think there's something about safety, feeling safe. And I think what you're doing, Iwan, is giving permission, but also nurturing that sense of safety. So people can sort of take a breath into that and then go from there. I think that's so beautiful and important. And Ian, you were talking about, we've been talking a lot about thinking and a lot about breathing. And years and years back, I got given this: time is our universe, thinking. Space is our universe, breathing. We are microcosms of our universe. And so for us, being in human form, to both think and to breathe is fundamental to who we are. But it seems to me that it's when both of those become overstimulated. If we become stressed, we hyperventilate. And so that depth of breathing just goes, and we don't have that belly breath and all the rest of it that, again, helps us to move into that attuned state and flow state and coherent state. And, when we overthink, we're distracted. We can't we can't access that clear signal. And for me at the moment, it seems to me that because of the internet, because of social media, because of people getting pinged every 2 seconds, notifications every 2, we've got absolute information overload. And so stimulation overload. And I remember growing up being really bored sometimes as a child. And Mum saying, it's good for you to be bored. And there is something in that. There is something in that for 2 reasons. First of all, it sort of helped me to sort of just literally steady myself. But also it then opened that threshold to deeper creativity, because I found my way to creativity through that, lack of stimulation. So there's something here, it seems to me, and the work that all 3 of you are doing, which is really beautiful and as simple as it can be, but no simpler, which is what Einstein said our universe is. And I've added to it to undertake its evolutionary journey. So I'd say both of those. What we're describing today is the potential, not just for an ongoing human journey, but from an evolution in what it can mean to be human, if we're willing to open up to who we really are, to remember who we really are, and to step into the adventure of what that invites us, that path that I think we've all been invited to step onto.
Beautiful.
And love is the way. Love is, because love is far more than a human sentiment, it seems to me. The universe isn't just living, it's innately loving.
Amazing.
Doing by being, being by doing, or be do, or be do, as Iwan and everyone's already heard that one. Look, you've all been fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on the show. And I hope everyone at home has been enjoying this, or on the metro if you're busy looking at a device, on the metro, on the bus, or wherever. Please give a shout out to the guests, or at least put an emoji down if you've enjoyed this. Thank you, Iwan, Ian, Jude. You're fantastic. Much love to you all.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you,
everyone.
Yeah,
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.